I'm going to call this meeting of the Waco Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. A quorum tonight is present. I want to welcome everyone who's watching this meeting on Waco Isd TV, cable channel 17, or online at wacoisd.org/live. On March 16th, the governor granted a request from the state's attorney general to temporarily suspend certain open meeting laws in order to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus pandemic. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. 1, members of the public may watch this meeting live on WISD TV, Channel 17 on Grande Communications and Spectrum, and online at wacoisd.org/live. 2, notice of this meeting was posted online for at least 72 hours. 3, to comment on an agenda item, members of the public were instructed in the notice for this meeting to submit their comments in writing to Joshua Wucher via email by 10 o'clock last night. 4, although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. 5, we are meeting by use of the Zoom video conferencing application, which allows for two-way communication. 6, there is no limit on the number of people who can stream the meeting live online and or watch it live on cable channel 17. 7, all other meeting procedures will be followed according to our board's operating procedures to the extent possible. 8, all items to be discussed or voted upon have been posted in accordance with state law. 9, a video recording of this meeting is being made and will be posted on our website at a later date. And if you have any questions about the suspended laws, please contact the Office of the Attorney General by calling 888-672-6787 or by emailing toma@oag.texas.gov. Next on our agenda is public comments on any of our agenda items posted tonight. And as I just mentioned, we ask that anyone wishing to comment send that information in to Josh Wucher by 10 o'clock last night. Mr. Wucher, did we get any public comments?
Madam President, no, did not receive any public comments for this evening's board workshop.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is to review and discuss the 2019-2020 budgeted maintenance projects. On our agenda, we have Jared Sturzinger, a principal with the O'Connell Robertson architectural firm in Austin. And unfortunately, Jared's unable to join us tonight due to a death in his family. And I understand he's traveling and we love Jared, but it's really great that we get to have Amy Jones with us tonight. And I think, Amy, now I've lost my notes, but I think you're the president of the firm?
Yep, that is correct.
Right. If you weren't, you should be. So there. I was going to be
thank you.
One way or the other. So we appreciate you stepping in for Jared tonight. And I know you have members of your team that you're going to introduce to the rest of the board. And with that, I think I will turn it over to you. And I know that we have 2 items on the agenda tonight that we were going to hear from Jared on, one has to do with our budgeted maintenance projects, but also the facility assessment, so we can talk about future facility planning. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Is that
That's correct.
Cannon, is there anything you were going to say first, or you good?
No, I think it's good to take both of those items together, and Amy could facilitate Jared's actually videotaped him giving that presentation, and Amy and her team are here for support.
Okay.
So I'll let Amy facilitate that, and she can begin with introducing some other team members from O'Connell Robertson who've been working behind the scenes helping us.
All right.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for including us in your meeting tonight. We're happy to be here to support this presentation. And the presentation is actually going to run by itself, and it's set up to be in two parts. So there will be a pause after the maintenance project section where we can take any questions related to that, and then we can just start it back up again and talk about the facility assessment and long range. I'm, as said, I'm Amy Jones, president of O'Connell Robertson, and joining me tonight in support of your projects are architects Meg Grayson and Garrett Brown, both of whom, as Dr. Kincannon said, have been working closely with Jared on different parts of the work happening throughout Waco ISD. And as was mentioned, Jared wasn't able to be with us, but he just doesn't like to give up too much of his engagement in these projects with you all. And we're all learning a little bit about how to be present even when we're remote. And so he's narrated this presentation tonight, and Meg, Garrett, and I are here for questions. And there'll be two natural breaking points in the presentation for those questions. So again, we really appreciate at O'Connell Robertson the opportunity to partner with Waco ISD and look forward to supporting your facilities program. So with that, I'll turn it back to you all to start the presentation.
Okay, I will get that going in just a moment. Good evening.
No sound.
Yep, we just lost it.
Okay.
Won't be able to join you live in the.
Now it's good.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, President DeKell, Dr. Kincannon. Thank you for having us here tonight and present on the two agenda items for the Waco ISD facility. For the budgeted maintenance projects, we present these in two major segments. The first of these projects are the budgeted maintenance projects. These are projects that we've been working on for about the last 6 months. Our team has led mechanical projects, security projects, and irrigation projects throughout the district. They're making that transition currently from the design phase to the bidding phase to the construction phase. So you'll see the information we presented in February in black and gray, and the update for May is shown in red. You'll see many of these on the board agenda item either this week or next week for approval to move into that construction. There are two additional projects from the budget and maintenance side that we wanted to update you on. The Child Nutrition Services project is just getting underway into the design phase. Here, we're working with the Child Nutrition Services team and the facilities team to really define the goals and priorities for the facility, developed a few options, and ultimately transition into contract documents. Our goal is to have these completed by August of this year to transition into construction and targeting a Q1 of 2021 completion for the facility. That'll of course depend upon the actual required phasing and construction plan that we work out here in this design phase. The second project is the Waco ISD Sports Complex. This is a turf replacement project for the Central Stadium at Waco ISD. This one bid actually this week, and we're currently making evaluations of the materials and systems that those suppliers provided and providing that information to Waco ISD for a recommendation. We're additionally having conversations internally with your team, but also with the contractor to facilitate any needs of the facility over the coming month or months. Tentatively, we have them planned to start construction in July, potentially as early as June, but be open for August timeframe so students can get back into the Central Stadium field. The other half of the projects are the strategic capital improvement projects. As you recall, in February, we presented 10 conceptual projects for consideration by the board and the administration and staff. Ultimately, we identified one project, the Paul Tyson replacement field, to move forward through its design. For the Paul Tyson field replacement project, we're just starting into the design phase. We've had a few meetings with Coach Love and the Waco High School athletic staff and the Waco ISD facilities team. Right now, we're working through goals of programming and defining the requirements of the project. We've conducted some on-site tours to evaluate the existing facilities, including the locker rooms. And then we're discussing access not only for track, field, soccer, football, but how this impacts from a scheduling standpoint to address baseball, softball, and the overall experience at Waco High School. Our goal is to transition from a design phase in the July-August timeframe, start working through bidding, and move into construction, ultimately targeting an August 2021 completion. This would allow students for the 2021-22 school year to start on a brand new facility for Paul Tyson Field on site at the campus. That will round out our update on the budgeted maintenance projects. This time we'll take a pause and welcome any questions that you might have.
So we have Meg and Garrett and I here if you have any questions on this portion of the report. This was our first time to do a PowerPoint built-in narration like that. So we really appreciated Jared being our guinea pig on that and showing us all how to do it. So if y'all have any questions, we've got some time.
A quick heads up, Jared is just asked to join the meeting, so he could be coming in soon.
Okay, yeah, and I think he's just going to listen because his Wi-Fi is very spotty. He's actually on the road. So if you'll let him in, that'd probably be great, but we'll still take care of any questions you've got.
Just did.
Yes, I have a question. This is Alan Sykes.
Okay.
On the site map, the layout shows the property where the existing Little League fields will be displaced, and that will be either become or is Waco ISD property. But it also shows on the back side of the property adjacent to the old Tyson field, it labels WISD, Waco ISD property. What is the planned use of that, or has that been identified yet?
Sure. Meg, do you want to maybe address
absolutely.
that question?
So, we're just in this sort of starting to plan out this phase of all the design work for this property. That would be for Waco ISD, and we have been working with the Lake Erie Little League on their properties and their fields. Potentially, that would be a space for softball, baseball fields for WISD.
I see. Okay.
So as you recall, we couldn't fit it all on the Waco ISD. So we put the football field and the practice fields and all of the locker room facilities over on the high school site because more students participate in football and track and less going across the street was the rationale for that.
At any time, Susan, was WISD as part of these land swaps, were those new Little League fields, was that part of the swap, or has that always been identified for the Little League fields?
Ooh, I hope I'm accurate, but I believe those were always identified for Little League fields. If anyone has different information on that, they can chime in. Kyle, you were there, but I'm pretty certain that those were important to the city, that they remain Little League.
Sure, but at one time, I thought that identified property on Waco ISD across the street there, I thought they were, at least one of the diagrams or site plans showed some of the overflow of those fields onto that property. So I don't know. So this site plan shows the current configuration of what either WISD owns or, I mean, the swaps have already been done. So that's a current reflection of what we own at this time.
Yeah, I don't think all of the deed transactions have happened, but this is the latest plan.
Okay.
And it was the plan that we all felt would be the best. So you see along New Road that property at the front is going to Waco ISD, and we're reserving that property for future planning for Waco High School. So when we dive in a little deeper on the renovations or the plan, the ultimate long-range plan for Waco High School, we have that availability to front New Road. And then putting that competition field on the site gives us some flexibility later should we decide to change the grade configuration at that campus if that were ever to happen. And then the baseball and softball went to the other piece of property there, which puts them across the street from the Little League fields.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? We're really pleased with the work that O'Connell Robertson has done to help us with those projects that needed some that we needed some assistance with, such as the irrigation project at University High School, where we have our fields are not in very good shape, and so I think Jared's been able to come up with a plan to help us improve that situation, and we're very, very pleased that we're going to be able to get that taken care of. You walk on those fields, which I did right away after I got into the school district, and they're just hard as rock with holes in them, and really present a tripping hazard for the students. So I'm really pleased that we're going to be able to take care of that irrigation problem that we have there. Okay.
Anybody else? Does anybody else have a question? Everybody good? Carrie, Norman, Robin, Jose?
I think I've looked at so many iterations of that project. I'm just gonna have to trust the architects here. I know it's not gonna be perfect in the end. I think that, we've got probably outsized demands for the property that we've got access to, but I'm just gonna have to, I suppose, depend on you folks to come up with the least bad option. That's not a very good way of putting it, but it's gonna be cramped.
We're up to the challenge.
I'm not sure there's any avoiding that.
We will definitely be bringing more detailed plans for the board's review as they're developed.
Yeah.
You will see more detail.
Yeah, we asked you to look at a schematic design, so this is still in the conceptual stage.
Right. Okay. And then, no questions tonight. Thank you.
If I may, Trustee Manning, a few minutes ago, it looked like you were trying to say something, but your mic was muted.
It's muted. Norman. There you go. There you go.
Okay. No, I think I'll wait till our meeting next week. I may be sending an email to Dr. Ken Callan, asking just a couple of questions I need to clear up, but they're not that critical for the night meeting.
Sure. And I can also get Jared to answer any questions we have, and if we need him back next week, he has committed to doing that as well.
And Stephanie, I was listing everybody and stopped talking before I got around to you. So I want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask questions.
I think it looks good. I mean, I think we're gonna, as it gets more conceptualized, I think we can take a look and kind of add things here and there. But I think we've gone back and forth on this so much that I kind of don't remember where we landed.
I think so. Right. I think we've, like Carrie says, we've looked at so many site plans. Really, I mean, for 2 years, really. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if we all have more questions once your design is fleshed out a little bit more, and we're able to see. Oh, this is, more than just this site plan, because we have looked at so many different site plans. So we'll look forward to getting more detailed plans. When would that be? As early as...
Go ahead,
We're
Meg.
just starting out with design. Currently, we're assessing the site, and we're looking at the needs of the site and the population. We are working towards getting closer to a plan. So everything is loose at this point.
We should have more for you to see next month for sure. We'll be making progress.
Madam President, as we go through those various, I guess, site plans that we have seen in the past, and there have been numerous ones, we've always come to the conclusion more is better. But it seems like as we go through the pathway, my concern is we're seeing more constriction, more reduction. So just my concern as we piece this thing together, going through the conceptual design and trying to protect what we're moving from to what we'll be going to. And it's going to have a pretty heavy price tag, we know, associated with that as well. So I'm just hoping that the suitability and adequacy of the new facilities will enable us to move forward with the programs we have planned for those new sites. So, but we have gone through a lot of iterations, and I know we're all looking forward to narrowing it down and looking at those final concepts. So.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have been working with the athletic director to develop the best option for both the short and the long-term solutions. It will give you some flexibility.
Okay.
Go ahead. Good to go, Amy, on the next part.
Okay, if y'all want to start the next, the video back up, we'll have the second portion.
As we transition into the second half of our presentation regarding the facility condition assessment, this also brings into mind the future facilities planning that was discussed in February. As you recall from the February board meeting, we presented the idea of a facilities master plan is really founded on 4 elements. A facility assessment, which talks about the systems and support elements of a building. The educational suitability, which talks about the classroom environment, supporting our students, our educators, with things like technology and furniture. And educational vision, which really focuses in on what graduates and the graduate profile would be like for Waco ISD students. And finally, the demographics and capacity of those existing facilities. Tonight, I have the opportunity to focus in on the facility assessment and report to you on the findings from that study. The facility assessment was completed by Dude Solutions and Alpha Facilities. This team of professionals took a comprehensive look at the Waco ISD facilities through a 4-step process. They first started with pre-field work, evaluating drawings, interviewing staff, actually conducting in-field observations and logging data, translating all that information gathered into reports, and then as well as into asset management software. The results produced the facility condition assessment and site infrastructure assessment, provided a comprehensive equipment inventory, a 20-year capital renewal forecast, which also pairs with a preventative maintenance schedule, all developed into an electronic system that Waco ISD is currently using. The facilities condition assessment addressed over 117 permanent facilities across 30 campuses in Waco ISD. This means facilities like Waco High School has 10 to 15 facilities based on their year, their vintage, and their condition, but each were individually assessed. This included over 2.6 million square feet of facilities and addressed facilities that initially were constructed from 1910 to 2012. That means the average age of facility in Waco ISD is around 51 years old. Ultimately, all this data was collected over a 6-month period and generated over 1,000 pages of information. No doubt, it was a comprehensive look given to all the facilities in Waco ISD. Here you see a list of the systems and the individual components of those systems that were evaluated, logged, and input into the asset management software and the reports that were provided. Overall, as the information was aggregated and analyzed, there were 8 major findings by School Dude and Alpha facilities from the facility condition assessment, which I've summarized here for you. The first is that many of the building systems were observed to be deteriorated or exceeded the end of their useful life. What does that mean? It means an air conditioner typically may last around 15 years, so equipment that's reached the 16th year should really be replaced to minimize the emergency replacement efforts. There were great things happening within the district, such as the efforts over the last 5 years to upgrade lighting systems to reduce ongoing energy costs. However, those electrical systems that are supporting those really have reached their useful life as well. Exhaust fans were observed in a range of conditions across the district, so a replacement cycle program needs to be implemented. Site asphalt paving were observed in poor condition across the site. However, roofing systems were in predominantly good condition. A lot of, again, that work that's been conducted over the last 5 or 10 years is reaping the benefits. The 7th finding is that many of the buildings don't contain life safety fire alarm, detection, or fire sprinkler systems. I would note that this is pretty routine for buildings of this vintage, as at the time of their construction, these systems weren't a code requirement. However, it is for most new facilities now. And finally, water quality tests should be conducted for facilities constructed prior to 1985 due to some of the materials and systems that were put in place at that time. As O'Connor Robertson evaluated the data from the facility condition assessment by Dude Solutions and Alpha Facilities, there were 2 major findings that we felt were important to identify for the Board of Trustees. The first of those findings is a comprehensive building systems analysis was conducted throughout the districts. That means every HVAC system, every roofing system was evaluated and ultimately identifying how have our buildings been maintained over time and what are the needs moving forward to address the functional needs of the schools. This allows us to evaluate in categories from left, needing some significant improvements, to the right, to needing minor improvements of how we can improve and make sure our operational functions of the building are in good working order. The second finding is related to cost and what are those potential needs for the Waco ISD facilities. And I want to start here with the analysis of total project cost. Is whenever we evaluate a project, we want to make sure that we paint a comprehensive picture, not only addressing hard cost, which are the costs that you would pay a contractor, we also need to address soft costs, to address furniture, to address design and permitting fees, to address geotechnical survey, all those elements that make a project whole. As we look at the information as we present forward, the information really focuses in on just the hard costs. So there will be some additional costs moving forward. I would like to point out as well that there's some additional considerations that we need to evaluate in looking at these costs. First, the costs that have been estimated are in a like-for-like replacement. So for an HVAC system, if it's an existing 12-SEER unit, it would be replacing it for a 12-SEER unit, no increase in efficiency. This additionally doesn't address code-required improvements that a 12-SEER unit may not be allowed by current code. And then as well as over time, it's not addressing items like inflation that will increase the cost over the years. So this chart represents the 20-year capital renewal forecast for the Waco ISD facilities as identified by the facility condition assessment. There are 2 elements that make up this chart. The first is the gray bar at the bottom, representing the amount of monies needed each year to address end-of-life system. And then the red bar, which identifies the cumulative total of those needs. And there are 2 items that I would point out in this chart. The first is that there is an immediate need, approximately $55 million of construction costs to address end-of-life systems present in Waco ISD facilities. The second is roughly in 10 years, there's an inciting point where many of the major systems reach their end of their useful life. So that good work that Waco ISD has done for the last 5 or 10 years will have to be repeated as those systems reach the 15, 20, 25-year mark. Before we get to the summary and the considerations for the Board of Trustees, I want to take a moment to create a parallel to vehicles that I think everybody could relate to as they evaluate the information from the facility condition assessment to facilities. So we'll start with the 1964 Chevy Malibu. It's a dependable vehicle. It's classic. It meets our fundamental need from getting us from door to door. Just so happens, this is the average age of a Waco ISD facility. As we start looking roughly 50 years in the future, we start asking questions about how we've addressed ongoing maintenance like oil changes, tire rotations. What does the paint and body look like? If it's an older vehicle, maybe you're pulling it over, maybe you're needing to do an engine overhaul or drivetrain improvements or some aesthetic items. So as you draw that parallel, and we'd start talking about campuses that need moderate improvements, that may be those site improvements or window and roof replacement for efficiency or keeping the water out. Or as we talk about significant improvements, you might talk about the electrical system, HVAC or fire alarm installation. At the end of the day, you want to consider that this is still a 1964 Chevy Malibu. It's getting us from door to door. It's meeting our needs. But we also want to look at the money that we've invested into this vehicle. So we want to give that comparison to a new vehicle. So bring on the 2020 Malibu. Here, as you look at that 2020 Malibu, you think about things like gas mileage, safety. You start having features like automatic locks and seats, OnStar system. So what does that mean for facilities? We need to make sure in parallel our existing facilities as well as a potential new facility are meeting those modern educational needs. What is the environment like to support our students and our teachers? How are we addressing our systems like HVAC from an efficiency and an outside air standpoint, and addressing accessibility and overall building codes? Something definitely to keep and consider as we move on to the next step of moving this information. In summary, there are two main overarching findings. First, a pragmatic approach was comprehensively addressed to analyze the physical condition of the Waco ISD building systems. The second is there's an immediate need that has been identified to maintain facilities in good working order at $55 million. So what are the considerations the board should be thinking about at this point? First, what project money should be allocated through an annual budgeting process? Similarly, what project monies are targets for a potential future bond? As we think back to that vehicle and that comparison to the Chevy Malibu, what are the expectations for Waco ISD facilities? The fourth is, how does the information pair with educational suitability, demographics, the educational vision? And ultimately, are there goals that the Board of Trustees and the administration would like to identify towards a 10-year or 15-year long-range plan? This concludes our presentation of the facility condition assessment, which was one of the 4 areas that we'll focus on the coming months to address the facilities master plan and start a vision for Waco ISD. With that, we'll welcome any questions. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Madam President, board members, Dr. Kincan, if I may, if you would like me to go back to a particular slide during your discussion, just say so.
So for my sake, what's our next step? What is going to be the next? So we've gathered the information, y'all have summarized it and presented it, and then what can we expect next?
Yeah, so the next step is the next circle going to the right on Jared's graphic. We'll begin to talk about that educational vision, educational suitability, I think was the word that he had there. And so Jared will be back to give that presentation. So tonight we wanted you to see that we've taken a look at all the major systems of the district and identified those needs. Those are going into our software system and will help us with our annual budgeting for maintenance and facilities projects. And obviously, you know, we're working towards a long-range facilities plan to address some of the bigger needs of our facilities, but also we may have the opportunity to, in the future, should we have a bond program, to include some of these maintenance needs as well. $55 million is a lot of money. And so we want you to have that context as we begin to take next steps to build that long-range facilities plan. We'll also be moving toward, hopefully in the fall, bringing together a committee to talk about facilities, and so that we can have that conversation with our community. Amy, would you add do you have anything else to add, Amy or Meg?
Actually, that's exactly what we would recommend. You have some really specific and clear information on the building conditions. So the question for you all then is, how does it fit with your educational goals and academic vision? And our team, Garrett, Meg, and Jared will all be actively engaged in looking at that educational suitability issue over the next month through site visits and evaluations, along with other members of the team.
And I really appreciate O'Connell Robertson synthesizing that facilities assessment for us, and giving you a high overview of those 1,000+ pages. A lot of information there to digest, and Jared did a beautiful job of summarizing that for us. So we're appreciative for their work, and wanted you all to know we're moving forward in the planning process.
Madam President, so on those projects are listed under budget maintenance, those have been funds set aside budget-wise?
We're working on the budget for next year now, and so we'll be coming to you with a budget presentation in June. And so this will go with that, and that we'll make a decision on how much money we want to put towards these projects in our next budget cycle. There were a number of projects completed this year, and as you saw in the previous presentation, a number of projects with significant dollar amounts attached that are already in progress. So we're moving forward with those, but the facilities assessment will help us identify the next set of projects to begin on, and we'll budget for that depending on, the amount will depend on all the other factors of the budget, such as salaries and all those fixed costs that we have in there.
Okay.
So great question, and that is coming.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Madam President, yes, I got one.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ken Cameron, I know we're just now going through the 2020 census, and I know we've been looking at redistricting, attendance zones, and demographics. I guess we're going to have to wait till we get through the 2020 census to determine what impact that's going to have on our school district.
Mm-hmm. So some of that,
because,
a little bit muddled. It takes a while to get the census information back. So those surveys are just being completed now. We will work with, I believe it's Michael Morrison from Baylor on that. And that's all about redistricting. As far as our demographic report, we'll work with Templeton Demographics on an update. And I will tell you, this is a really interesting time because of the pandemic. And I can't predict. I think it's gonna be difficult to predict what school might look like next year, and how many students might come back from private school, or how many students might choose to do homeschool. And so it's going to be a really interesting time in forecasting. And I know Bob Templeton is studying that. I actually had a conversation with him yesterday about what they're seeing across the state and how forecasting might look. And so I think it will be important for us to get him back. And of course, obviously that's going to impact the budget for Cheryl in being able to run his, typically she'll run her budget around historical data. and those demographic projections. And this time may be a little bit trickier because we don't know how people will respond to the pandemic. So financial situations may push people to us. The actual pandemic itself may push people to want to stay home more. And so it could impact our ADA and ultimately our budget.
Well, and that's what I was thinking about, because I heard on the news today that the growth of Waco is really blowing up and everything. And I know we have to be prepared if the growth in Waco is we need to be prepared to hopefully accept a bunch of new students in the Waco ISD. So that's why I'm interested in and all these projects we're doing, that it also will depend on the students. When we lose a bunch of students, we're gonna lose a bunch of money. I mean, simple math. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, thank you.
You bet. And we'll keep working with our demographer. I typically will have them do 2 runs a year for us, a fall report and a spring report, with projections for the new school year. And I know that Cheryl has been studying those projections as she's planning for next year's budget. And this is going to be an unusual budget cycle, especially being able to predict our attendance.
Let's see, Angela, I got a couple of questions, I guess. Amy, the graph on page, I want to make sure I understand, I guess, page 19. Basically, okay, if I'm understanding this right, the recommendations that we need to spend we have about 55 million in what O'Connell Robertson would, I guess, define as immediate need. That expenditure, however, now would probably cover us for some period of time, but it looks like cumulative over, say, maybe the next 5 or 6 years, we add another, what, 10 or 15 million to that, up to about 60, 65 million by 2026. I'm not sure I'm wording that very well. But
yeah. So I think the first thing I would say is all the need was defined by Alpha and the district. So we're just interpreting that data for you tonight, bringing you their report. But yes, to some degree, it's the 55 million is what they are identifying as your initial need, the highest priority here in the interim. Keeping in mind that is only construction costs, and that is based on construction costs of a 1-for-1 change out of an item, as Jared referred to the system. And some of the systems that you currently have that they're identifying a 1-for-1 cost for, we can't do anymore because they wouldn't meet a current code of a new project. So total cost will be more. And what we would suggest is that you begin to develop that phase plan to address those major maintenance projects and needs. And with that, we would then support creation of an implementation plan that includes specific scope for those project schedules and the total estimated cost, including those soft costs and things that Jared referred to, understanding that those projects would be phased out over these near years.
Okay. And understood. I guess, yeah, because I don't think we're going to spend $55 million
right away. Sure.
Now in the end of the year or even the
absolutely.
Next month. But I am wondering, what I do wonder is what is our annual budget for that sort of thing? Because I mean, obviously we're not going to be able to replace everything that needs replacing. I think most of what I own is probably beyond its recommended useful life. So I know that some things can be used beyond that, and we're going to have to do some amount of that, but obviously we're going to have to spend some money. What typically is in our budget for that kind of project? Susan, do you know, or is Cheryl there somewhere?
Cheryl's here. I don't know the trends as well. I can tell you, we've been talking up to 5 million for next year, but that may not be possible with some budget limitations. And so I would defer to Cheryl on trends.
Well, we have this past year with the HB3 money. One of the things that we did was put about $5 million of that new money aside. About $1.2 million went into technology projects. About $800,000 went into safety and security projects. Then there was $700,000 for bus replacements. And then the remainder of that money, which is probably $2.5 million, say, went into those kinds of maintenance projects.
Okay. So we would reasonably expect a similar number to be available next year for the 2.5 to 3 million again for these kinds of projects, or
I think so, but we're still working through the budget.
Okay.
Process. And like I said, attendance is a wild card this year with COVID-19, being able to predict what that might look like. And so, and depends on how much salary increase you all want to give. And we'll be bringing you a compensation study in a couple of weeks in early June so that you can see what those scenarios are looking like as well. So we have to put all the pieces together before we can determine. Typically, your capital projects, you weave those in after you get your fixed costs and your salaries, and see where you are with your budget.
Okay.
I think the only other thing that we would add about the implementation plan to your initial question is that we'll work with the district on identifying those critical needs, those emergency issues first as we create an implementation plan, because what we don't want is for you to get into a situation where, one of the systems breaks down on you. Some of these are very close to the end of their life. And so you want to definitely be replacing them before you get caught up in an emergency situation where you've lost the HVAC on a whole campus during operations or something like that. So that would all be part of the implementation plan to make sure that the critical needs are happening first as you phase it out, because certainly you can't do it all at once.
Yeah, and you might likely never get everything done. So the beauty of the assessment is to guide you for a period of time and help you prioritize, like Amy said, what should come first. And then if you have the ability to do additional things in a bond program, you might want to or you might not. But the idea is that you're continually working at keeping things up to date, just like the roofing that Jared mentioned has been done. And there's always a project in a school district this size, and we want to keep working at it every year.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's never completed. Alrighty. I think that's all I've got. I look forward to the prioritization of projects and what all that adds up to.
Clearly, if we don't get started with a plan and implementing a plan, the graph indicates that it just snowballs very, very quickly if we don't get moving. So time's right to discuss this in detail for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that. We that's the goal, right? Is to have good plans every year, and then to build on to a long-range facilities plan, and that's where we're headed.
Anybody else have a question? Okay. Is there anything else from your team, Amy?
No, I think that's it. The only, the only other thing I'd say is we work with a lot of districts that have buildings of this age, and yours are in pretty good condition for being at this age. Many of these things are natural, just end of life issues. So, kudos to the district and your staff and your team for the ongoing maintenance work that you do on your buildings and your upkeep. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and look forward to continuing the conversations and the work together. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the shout out to our our maintenance staff, it seems like we do have a lot of needs, and I know that we've spent a lot of time and money to try to take care of what we can, and our folks do a good job with what they have. So, clearly for that.
Hey, Meg, are you from Waco?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm glad to be working in Waco.
We're glad to have you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, with that, I think we'll move to the next item on our agenda, unless anybody got last call. Okay.
We'll let the O'Connell Robertson.
Yes, and thank you, Jared. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we're at item 5, review and discuss the teacher incentive allotment update. Dr. Gutierrez.
Yes, Josh, if you can start my video again, please.
Everybody can see that?
I can.
Yes.
Excellent.
And the video?
And Josie, can we see you as well?
Yes, I'm waiting for Josh to block. My video's blocked.
Oh, got it.
Yep.
Just bear with me for 1 second. I didn't realize her video was blocked.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, President Tekel and Board of Trustees. It's my pleasure tonight to present to you an update on the teacher incentive allotment. We recently submitted a proposal to TEA, and I know back in January, Dr. McWilliams had shared with you the letter of intent and an overview about what TIA is all about. So I'm here to give you the latest update. Okay, let's just review. If we can move to the next slide. If we can just review what TIA what it is. So TIA is part of the House Bill 3. And really, it's an effort to focus on helping schools improve their recruiting, supporting and retaining of effective teachers. And specifically, it focuses on high needs and rural schools. And for us, it's going to really help us with our schools who most need the improvement. And I'll share a little bit about that in a few minutes. But TIA also is what we call a strategic evaluation system. And this is a system it's not just your regular observation system. This has multiple measures that inform whether a teacher is effective or not. And we'll dive into those components that we propose to use through TIA. And one of my favorite parts is now we can use data, because when you use multiple measures, you have multiple data points so that you can inform things like your strategic staffing plans, your professional development. You can work on the transformation of your compensation system. You can set up career pathways, such as identifying the best teachers to serve in roles of teacher leadership roles, and even set up your pipeline for your assistant principalships and your principals. It helps with hiring, because we'll also be able to recruit other teachers that we know are effective from other schools. And we can also use this data to support and retain the best teachers. So we will have multiple uses of all of these data points. Next slide. So the first thing I really want to share with you is, I know this has been fast and furious work. However, I didn't do all this work by myself. I had an amazing team around me. So we have a core committee, and on the core committee, we had some principals, we had teachers, we had team members from our curriculum department, a communications department, a couple of folks from my team, and the finance department, because this system is going to take work from all aspects of our district. And our team was meeting regularly. We're meeting weekly, and we're going to continue to meet throughout the summer and even throughout next year. But this team also had subcommittees, because there were some details that we needed to work out. So we had additional teachers supporting the development of our leadership practices that I'll share with you in just a moment. We had a team who helped design the spending plan, and we definitely included 4 teacher leaders from our 4 major teacher associations. So we're trying to include as many people as possible. And we also had teachers on our committee who were out there anecdotally talking to other teachers to get their feedback and input about what we were doing. So we know that the teachers' input and principals' input was really key in the development of this work. Some additional input that we plan to acquire is we'll be doing a teacher buy-in survey. We hope to launch that by the end of the month. We'll continue, as I mentioned, with our core team meetings, and we'll be establishing a larger teacher expert group. So we'll have 1 teacher from each campus who will become experts in this work, and we'll be meeting at least once every 6 weeks with this group. And then we'll also be engaging the QDAP with our work. Okay, next slide. So why should we engage in this work? Because this is a really hard work. It's going to be a heavy lift for our district, but the most important reason why we need to engage in this work is because the impact it has on our students. Always putting students first is at the forefront of what we do. And with a strategic evaluation systems, because we know, I mean, this work has been going on throughout the country for at least a decade, probably a little longer. But we know from the findings of this work that there are 3 areas of impact that occur. One is we increase the retention of higher performing teachers. And, you know, we're really focused on retaining our teachers, and we especially want to retain the best. The second is around improving student outcomes. And that's what it's going to take for us to achieve our goals, our student achievement goals. But most importantly, we're going to close those opportunity gaps, because we know that when we give students who have those opportunity gaps the best access to the best teachers, the result is closing those opportunity gaps, sorry. Next slide. So a bird's eye view on the next few years. We're still in the design mode. The design mode was spring and summer 2020. At this point, we're waiting for TEA to give us feedback on the proposal so that we can make some refinements, and then we'll be bringing back the final information to you for your approval and support. But as we enter the next school year, we have a lot to do. We'll be launching communications this summer, having our expert meetings, providing professional development for teachers and principals. And next year is what we call our data collection year. But as we move into the 2021-2022 school year, we'll be submitting our data to Texas Tech. They were hired by TEA to review the data. We'll get final approval by February of 2022. We'll continue to implement some differentiated PD, because at that point we'll have some good data about the teachers and how to best support them. And then we're going to always be in a refinement and improvement mode. And in a later slide, I'm going to share a little bit with you about how we plan to phase this in. So we're proposing to phase in phase 2 in 2021-2022. And by 2022 and 2023, I know it seems so far away, but it'll get here very quickly. That's when the state funding starts flowing to our districts, and that's when we can start paying out teachers and making this part of the compensation. And then again, continue to improve our model and implement phase 3. Okay, next slide. So just a quick overview, and a lot of this information is on the TA website under the teacher incentive allotment section, and there are some short videos that you could watch if you want more information. But just an overview of how funding works. So here on the left side, you'll see there's designations. So there's 3 designations for teachers. Teachers could either be at the recognized level, at the exemplary level, or at the master level when they are designated. And then if you move to the right, you see here that the tiers, as you move to the right, start increasing the funding. So what this tells us is that the higher the need the school, and the tiers are set by the state. If you're working in a high need school, you can earn more money if you're designated. So let me give you an example. A recognized teacher, if they work in a non-economically disadvantaged school, which we don't have any, so let's start here. If they're working in one of our tier 1 schools, they would make, the least they would make in addition to their salary is $3,750. But if they work in a tier 5 school, they could make up to $9,000 extra dollars. An exemplary teacher, $6,000, well, let's do this, $7,500 up to $18,000. A master's level teacher in our district, $14,500 up to $32,000. That's max funding amount. I'm not going to get into the rural because we're not designated as a rural district. So lots of opportunities here for our teachers to really earn a significant amount of money when they are designated and work in a high need school. So that's one of the most exciting things, because this is going to give us the opportunity to recruit in schools who need the most effective teachers. Every school needs an effective teacher. Every kid needs an effective teacher, but this gives us the opportunity to recruit and retain teachers in our schools with the most need, in which we're typically struggling because teachers tend to, recruitment is much harder to get teachers in those schools. So that's one of the things that I think makes this the most exciting. If we can go to the next slide. So who is eligible? So now I want to dive into what we proposed. Our goal is all teachers in all schools, because there are some districts who aren't going to include all teachers in all schools, but we want to make it very clear. We believe that we can have a model that includes all teachers and all schools. And in that, we're proposing, can click again, for next year, as we collect data, we're proposing that all schools be included reading and math only. So there's a phase in, and we decided to do a phase in model because this is very complex work and we want to be very successful at doing this work, and rolling it all out district wide with every teacher would may cause more hiccups than needed, and not be the way that we want to manage this project, because it requires some assessment, and we're not quite ready and there to execute at that level. But by phase 2, we could be ready to include all schools and all core content area teachers. Then by the 3rd year of implementation, that's when we can capture all schools and all subjects, teachers from across all subjects. Okay, next slide. So how are we going to measure and weight these teacher designations? So there's 2 measures that are non-negotiable in this model. One is the observation, and then the student growth measure. But there's also the option to use additional measures. So we're proposing 3 measures. For observations, T-tests, it's the current evaluation system that we use, and we propose weighting that at 45%. The student growth measure, we would use Renaissance 360 for grades 1 through high school, and Circle and Texas Kia for the primary grades, and we would weight that at 45%. And the key thing that I want to say about the growth measures is we align the growth measures with the assessment strategy that the curriculum and instruction department is doing, because we don't believe in assessing kids just to determine a teacher's designation. We're assessing kids because we want to know how to respond to their needs. And so there's close alignment there and not extra testing. And then there's also the third measure we're calling core leadership practices. And this would be weighted at 10%. And our core leadership practices include how teachers collaborate with each other on the campus and how they engage in that work, teachers who seek both formal and informal mentorship opportunities on the campus to help other teachers, and how they extend and expand the school community involvement. So how are they engaging outside of the classroom in school and community events? Okay. Next slide. So how do we distribute funds? So this was another piece that we had to submit in the application. So at a minimum, we could only pull back 10% back to the district. 90% has to go back to the campus where a teacher works. So as we work through that, in year one, we proposed that 75% go back to the designated teacher. So this is the teacher who is receiving the designation. However, 15% of that money could be allotted to other high-performing teachers who work with this teacher on a team that ultimately has the student impact. And then 10% going back to the school district to help fund some of the costs that will be involved with the TIA. Again, over time, we see hoping to move this to 90%. Once we engage all teachers, but we wanted all teachers to know on that campus that everyone has an opportunity to earn even out the gate in year one, which is why you'll see the 75%, 15% split there. Okay. I'd like to open it up for questions.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Where was this 15 years ago?
15 years ago, I can tell you, I engaged in this kind of work about 10 years ago, but it was some of the early stages, like with the TIF grants, and yeah, and then of course Dallas started it probably I think 7 years ago. So, and nationally, it's been in a few places. So it's been around a little while. It just keeps evolving.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? So what's the next step? You were waiting on TEA's approval? I was looking at your chart, and have you already had the teacher buy-in survey that you were talking about? And you were talking about the teacher groups that you've engaged in the conversation, but I wasn't clear on whether or not the survey's been conducted.
No, the survey hasn't been conducted. We hope to send it out by the end of the month. Okay. TEA is giving us feedback on, if they think it's a strong model or not, and then they're going to give us time to refine it if it's not. And we also have some time when we refine it to make some amendments to it if, based on our teacher buy-in. So that's the thinking behind that.
Merit pay systems are generally a little bit controversial. But I think Josie has a really good plan. I too have had some experience with them implementing what we call the date grants, probably about a decade ago, Josie, and they were very positive for our teachers to get those additional checks for meeting certain metrics. And so that's a good thing. And of course, we weren't near this kind of money that the state's putting into it at this time. So I'm excited to see what we can do with it, to see if it'll make a difference for us in teacher retention. That was one of our big priorities.
Thank you. It's exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Kincannon, review and discuss the district's vision, mission, and goals.
Great. I'll let Josh put those slides up there. This is a continuation of our presentation from last month. Josh, you have those slides?
I will have those up in just a moment. I had to switch presentations.
That's okay. I'll keep moving because the slides can catch up to me. But I want to continue our conversation from last month on our vision and mission statements. And then tonight I want to add to what we talked about last night in terms of the board's goals. And all of this, of course, is leading up to you all adopting a vision, mission, and goals at our next meeting next week. And then those will be used to develop our district and campus improvement plans. So the question that we asked, our guiding question that we considered for a new mission statement, as we talked about last month, came from the book Essentialism by Greg McEwen. And the question was, if we could be truly excellent at one thing, what would it be? And we spent some time talking to our administrators about that. I proposed a couple of options there for you for a mission statement. And then you all tweaked a little bit. Next slide there, Josh. And came up with the mission of Waco ISD is to provide an educational foundation that empowers and values all. And this statement seems to capture our intent to help everyone in the school system thrive. And I think it also affirms our commitment to equity, inclusion, and success for all students. So tonight I'd like to ask you if you're still good with this as a mission statement, and if there are any changes that you would like to make to the statement. Y'all still feeling pretty good about it?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I like it. I was trying to remember what the two that we had originally, because there were two and then it's sort of coalesced. So
yeah, I don't have the other one in front of me. The other one had the word thrive in it.
Yeah.
It's very similar, but it also included the word thrive.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And this was the preferred one. Okay.
I like it.
I really like the word empowers because I think ultimately we do want to give all of our students the tools they need to be successful and to feel like they have what they need.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that is you may be given the tools, but if you don't feel like you know how to use them or can't use them or don't have a seat at the table, that word empowerment, I think, is a really strong word. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for that. Strong words are important on your mission statement. So if we're really want to be really good at one thing, empowering and valuing all would be great to be good at. Okay, so that feels pretty good. The next one, next slide there is the vision statement that we landed on last month. The vision of Waco ISD is to enable students and staff to cultivate a better future for all. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about this one and the word enable here. And I still wonder if that's the right word. We talked about powerful words, and I don't know that enable is the most powerful word there. And we took it out because we had the word cultivate there. And it felt a little gardenish, grow and cultivate. So I'm proposing on the next slide an option for you to take a look at, and you can use either one of these that you like. Would you move to that next one there, Josh? That one. The vision of Waco ISD is to grow students, previous slide. Grow students and staff to create a better future for all. So do you have a preference on those two slides? To enable students and staff to cultivate, or to grow students and staff to create a better future for all?
Number two.
I feel like number two.
Number two?
Yeah, number two.
Everybody feels good about that one?
Yeah, I like two.
I kind of like the first one.
Okay, talk about it. Go for it.
I think the emphasis on enabling both students and staff, that's what stuck out to me in that sentence. That it's not just our students, but it's our staff as well. To cultivate, because I think that if you cultivate something, you're growing it. If you cultivate something, you're in the beginning stages of seeing a fruition for people. And I think the school district, a community that they're kind of going back to the first one, our mission statement, that empowers and values all. So every person, every part, we're looking really to kind of, again, that word empower people for that better future.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have to be stuck on it. I just think it.
Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe a crossover. I don't know, I'll throw this out. What about the vision of Waco ISD is to cultivate students and staff to create a better future for all?
Cultivate students and staff?
What's that?
Say it one more time.
I was thinking a hybrid. What about the vision of Waco ISD is to cultivate students and staff to create a better future for all?
Yeah.
And just looking at the definition of cultivate, it is, dictionary definition is to prepare.
Mm-hmm. Anyone have a strong feeling on that? I think that, I think they all could work. Might want to choose the one that flows the easiest, that you think you might remember. Because I think they all, right? I think they all capture growing students and staff, and they all capture all, a better future for all. So I think they're all pretty similar. I think it's just which one do you think flows the best, and that we could commit to and remember.
Well, Dr. Kincannon, personally, I'm kind of lukewarm on both now, so I'm not really sure right now.
Okay. Do you want to think about it another week?
I think we should. Yeah.
Okay. We can do that. We can look at those three. We have three now. So you guys think about those over the next week, and we'll take next Thursday.
So just for clarification, where does the vision then replicate itself? We're pretty quick to an agreement that we liked the mission statement, and then how will the vision statement be used separate from the mission? And then I'm just thinking about the importance of these particular words. Is it for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
First of all, you're required by policy to have a vision and a mission. In terms of use, that mission is that goes back to that question about what's our intent, and what do we want to be, right? If we could be excellent at one thing, what do we want to be? And the purpose of the vision is to project what does it look like if we arrive. So if we truly meet that vision, that mission of educating empowering and valuing all, right? To provide an educational foundation that empowers and values all. How do we know if we arrive? If we arrive, then we have cultivated or created or grown our students and staff so that there's a better future for all. And so that's the outcome of the mission. Okay.
Anybody else before we move on?
Anyone have really strong feelings about them? You got to ponder them a week and work through it again next week? Okay. All right. The next piece are the goals. And I want to remind you that when I put together the district improvement plan and presented it to you back in November, that there were 10 goals. And so I've listed the first 5 there. The first one being about teacher retention, recruit, develop, and retain highly qualified teachers and staff to increase the percentage of teachers with more than 5 years of experience and decrease the turnover rate. We've been working, if you pulled up the district improvement plan, you could see a number of objectives and activities there. We've been working diligently to implement this goal. We've streamlined some hiring processes. We've conducted a staff and a compensation study that TASB has assisted us with, and we'll be presenting those to you in June at a meeting on June 11th. We've audited service records. There are several professional development activities listed in that goal, which are have already begun to occur, such as data-driven instruction and action coaching. And yet there's still several things in there that are still in progress. 2 was to ensure a guaranteed and viable curriculum customized to the needs of the district. And we've done some work there, quickly did some work on local assessments this year. But we still have a lot of work yet to do on developing our curriculum. And I know that Mrs. Kornblum is working on summer plans for that as we speak. We've also done some work in this area with our counselors. We audited senior transcripts this year, and we've been able to use what we learned from those audits to improve some of our systems and processes around making sure our kids get what they need. Goal 3 was to develop and implement plans, systems, and processes to support our campus A through F ratings, focusing on removing labels and ensuring academic success for students. We did a tremendous amount of work in this area, and we won't see the results of that in the A through F system because of the delay of the accountability system this year. But we did spend a large amount of time with our campuses, helping them understand the A through F system. We worked closely with ESC 12 for some technical assistance there. We also worked on CCMR and our data, dug deep into that data and coding to make sure we were getting it right there. And then we've worked on PEIMS a lot this year, making sure that we accurately coded our students in PEIMS, and added some additional support through a contract with ESC 12 to make sure we're training our PEIMS staff. That next goal there is to coordinate the entire instructional program, including federal resources, to support increased student achievement for all student groups. There's a lot packed into that goal, but what I'd mentioned to you tonight is that we have really done a fantastic job in special education and trying to finish those initial evaluations that we were behind on. So Charlotte Davis tells me that we have completed 98% of those initial evals that were undone when she arrived. Now we're getting a little bit of a backlog again because of COVID-19, but she's working very hard to stay on top of that. And so we're really proud of that. We've also spent some time working with local school districts on the Day School for the Deaf interlocal agreement, and we'll be bringing that to you for your approval next week. The next one there, Goal 5, is to create and sustain safe and supportive learning environments. The thing that we have spent a lot of time on Goal 5, and we certainly haven't covered all of Goal 5 yet this year, but we have spent a lot of time reviewing our behavior systems. And you all heard a report from Dr. May Kaufman at your last meeting, and we're really proud to have moved the needle a little bit on that. Actually a lot on that. And then we are also working with the Texas School Safety Center to update our emergency operations plans. Dr. Warren and her team have been doing that. Next slide, Goal 6 was to evaluate, develop, and refine district processes and systems. We've spent a lot of time talking about our Teams frontline software, which is our main database for students, also for finance and for human resources. And we have been working with a consultant to improve the use of those systems. We've just scratched the surface of those improvements, and we'll have quite a bit of work left to do this next year. And then something else we've done in that area, and we will bring you a presentation on that next week, is to improve our online student registration process. So Patrick Upmore and Peems has been working on that, and we'll be rolling that out, and actually have already rolled out some pieces and have been able to refine some pieces from pre-K registration that will help when we do the full registration process for the fall. And I heard that frequently on my campus visits when I arrived, and I think board members even mentioned that that was a problem. It was just a little clunky. So I'm pleased with the progress that we're making there. On Goal 7, build capacity for school leadership. Of course, we spent a lot of time in conversation with our principals in our monthly meetings, but we've also had almost all of our leaders now attend a 3-day Design Thinking Institute. I also have them reading 4 books in preparation for our summer retreat that is scheduled at the end of July. And what we plan to do at the end of July is to use that design thinking model that they learned to address some of the problems and come up with some solutions for individual campuses. So we want them to apply that learning. So hopefully that will get to occur. I'm a little concerned about that with the COVID-19. Around technology to support teaching and learning and our district operations. Our wide area network project will be complete this summer. The district's invested heavily in that, and we are, thanks to you all for approving the technology replacement cycle project. We're about to roll out phase 1 of that cycle, and our teachers will get new devices this next school year. So we appreciate that. Under Goal 9, engage families and the community at the district level to support student achievement and enhance district goals. We hosted an online teletown hall this year and participated in a number of activities with local community groups. And we've been able to highlight some of those partnerships at our monthly meetings. We didn't get to have that meeting we planned for in March due to closure of school, but we did work in this, some good work in this area. And then under Goal 10, ensure well-maintained quality teaching and learning spaces. We've done a number of things already. We have that facilities maintenance study that's complete, and we are developing that strategy for a long-range facilities plan. So my recommendation, I really had hoped to streamline these goals, these 10 goals, into fewer areas. But as I sat and reflected on them and looked at the district improvement plan, there's still quite a bit of work to do there. And collapsing these into fewer goals creates a lot of work in manipulating the planning software that we have, and not only work just for myself and the district improvement plan, but for all of our principals. And it doesn't change the work. So within each one of those goals, we are able to eliminate the things that we've accomplished. We're able to add new things that we want to do for next school year. I already know some things that I'll be adding to the plan before I bring it back to you in August. So my proposal is that we keep those 10 goals for another year, and that we carry forward the work that's incomplete, and we add to our plan to address things that we need to address. So I would love any feedback you have on that idea. Unless you want me to collapse those, I'd like to continue forward.
Madam President, I think that's a good recommendation. I think that's a very comprehensive list. I do know it could be probably consolidated, and I think you would be excellent at looking at that over time, Susan. Mm-hmm. I might suggest, because I think we've encountered this before, anytime I see a list of 1 to 10, I tend to want to look at them as a priority list. Mm-hmm. And I might suggest that if anyone else looks at it in that light, number 9, I might suggest that get moved up to like 2 or 3 on the list.
Easy. That's easy to do. I can do that.
Not that it is a list of priorities, but I'd like to read that along with those first 2 for sure, addressing teachers, retention, curriculum, and then community. I think that would be great.
Okay, I can do that easily.
That's good feedback. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a comment. In number 7, and build capacity for school leadership. Does that also involve the making our own, preparing people for promotions to different levels in the school district?
It does, because it includes all of our school leaders. And so when your school leaders are training alongside with your assistant principals or your instructional specialists, or training alongside of your principals, that becomes your best hiring pool because you've trained them up. So that's a goal, right? You want to be able to recruit from within if you can, if you have if people are growing.
How people prepared to take over in case of any, like say with COVID-19, you never know anymore. So how people ready to step in and to take over?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Okay, so next week, we'll come back and we'll finish up on that vision statement. So if you guys will ponder that for a week, then we will take a vote, and I will ask you to approve all of those at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. I can't see everybody the way my screen's situated, so okay, thank you. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to weigh in. Wave at me if you have a question or comment. Are you good? Or that too. That's good. Okay.
Thumbs up.
Okay, so Dr. Kincannon, if you'll close us out with the response to COVID-19. Thought this would be a good opportunity just to update the board and our community on the latest, which I know the latest probably is the change in our graduation plans, but I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Yes, I want to talk about graduation, and I have a few other things to talk about there as well. Our graduation ceremonies are set for next Friday, May the 29th, and that's Friday. and next Saturday, May the 30th. Those are both at 10 a.m. at the Waco ISD Stadium. University High School's ceremony is on Friday. Waco High School's ceremony is on Saturday. And I see our interpreter, so I'm going to make sure I slow down. I want to thank our local healthcare experts from Providence Hospital specifically for their advice and guidance on our plan for screening for the signs of COVID-19 and other overall aspects of our plan for graduation to ensure that we are taking proper safety precautions and appropriate precautions for our graduates and their families. They've been generous in sharing information with us, and they have been an outstanding community partner during this time. I'd also like to thank the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District for reviewing our plan to ensure that we meet all of the recommended guidelines of the state as well as the CDC. Our administrative team has been working to make this a memorable moment for our students and families. We had another meeting yesterday afternoon, very productive. And while it won't be what we would have ultimately wanted for our students, which is what we traditionally have, we hope that our graduates will look back on this time with fond memories of their graduation ceremonies. We'll be communicating instructions to our graduates and their families as soon as possible, which will include that they can bring 2 guests with them to the stadium. I think that, apologize for that noise. Guests must arrive at the stadium with their graduate. Each graduate will have an assigned time slot to arrive at the stadium and at an assigned gate through which to enter the stadium. As they enter the stadium driveways, each vehicle will be given a packet with a screening forms and graduation programs. Graduates and their guests will be asked to stay in their cars until an attendant asks them to get out of their car. And so what the idea is that by keeping people in their cars, we can control the number of people standing in line to get in so that we can properly social distance. Enter the stadium, guests must be with their graduate and they must present a screening form and they will have their temperature taken. And anyone with possible signs of COVID-19 and or a temperature greater than 99.5 will not be allowed to enter. We will not allow bags into the stadium. Attendants who will seat guests, all seating areas will be pre-marked with a sticker to ensure that we're maintaining social distancing as required by the state. And we will not allow re-entry to the stadium. So if you come in and you want to leave, you're not going to be able to come back in. It's almost June, so it's possible that it will be warm on Friday and Saturday morning. So for that reason, guests are encouraged to bring a clear bottle filled with water, and we will not have concessions open. So we're asking for everyone's patience during this time and certainly appreciate the board for your support and for your feedback as we worked on this plan. And we'll be rolling information out to our families as soon as possible, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. Are there any questions on graduation?
I just want to thank you for being so thorough and deliberate and looking at both what the families really have wanted and also really considering the health concerns and making sure that the screening isn't just, you know, a pretend situation, that we're actually really looking at health effects and health impacts.
Thank you, Mrs. Houston. We listened. We want our students to be able to have guests, but we do that having the screening is a big responsibility, and we did take that very seriously.
I just would like to echo what Robin said. I know that this is a huge undertaking
that of course our heart and intent is to make this a special moment for these students and their families. And I really just appreciate you being able to kind of do a lot of behind the scenes logistics and a fairly heavy lift to ensure, again, what Robin said, that it's a special moment for these graduates and their families, but then also we are taking the fullest measure to also protect these graduates and their families. So I really appreciate that, and the way that the administration has really worked hard these last couple of weeks.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, the next topic.
Before you go on, Dr.
Sure.
King, I just want to you mentioned Providence, and we're really grateful for they reached out to us and asked us how they could help. And I am very appreciative of that, and they are turning out to be a great partner. But also, I've been listening to the work that your team has been doing with the city and with the county and with the health department. And we're really appreciative of the mayor and Judge Felton and Dr. Gray. And I think that, like Stephanie said, it's been a huge lift. And then when it has to do with a family celebration that really is akin to a wedding, or a funeral or a baptism, all of those things that our families really look forward to, and it's such a great opportunity to bring us all together. And so, I don't know, it just seemed to be a cocktail of a really significant event, and at the same time, wanting to honor our partnerships with in our community, with our medical professionals and our city and our county. And it's hard work. And I appreciate the time you have taken to make sure that everything we've done is thoughtful and respectful of our partners. And then also, it's been working in quicksand, because every day something's new, something different. And all the while, we want to make sure that our kids are celebrated and our families have an opportunity to be there for such a significant event in everybody's life. So anyway, let's hope that that we can continue with our plan, and that something else doesn't happen in the next week that forces you to make a significant change. But I just want to thank you and your team for listening to all of us and to our community and parents, while at the same time working to be a good partner with the other folks in the community who are dealing with events similar to ours. So
You're very welcome. This has certainly been a challenging decision. We, we expected some social distancing when EA put out the guidelines, but to screen for 11 signs and symptoms of COVID was the challenge. And we did want to be a good community partner. Our community has invested heavily in making sure that we slowed down the spread of the coronavirus. So, we wanted to honor that good work that has happened here in McLennan County and in the city of Waco. But we do have some great partners. The city, the county, and the health district have all been fantastic. And Providence has really stepped up to help us in a big way. So I'm really pleased. We've also been able, might mention here too, that we've also been able to use Providence for some return to work procedures. And they've invested a lot of time in us at no cost. Just as a good community partner to help us get back up and running, and to instill confidence in our employees that we've taken all the proper safety precautions to bring people back safely. So I'm really pleased with the community support that we've had to make good decisions. So thank you all.
Yeah, and may I say hats off to you and staff. You know, planning for graduation with the number of not only graduates but family members that typically would attend, with all the festivities and everything leading up to it, takes a lot of planning by itself. Not counting the fact that we were thrown a wrench, you know, last 2-3 months with what's going on from the health in the health environment right now. So, whatever plans you had to take a rapid redirection or change in direction. And to me, it's evidence that you and your staff are just laser focused on making it work, reaching out as necessary, doing the proper due diligence to safeguard the health of all of those everyone that'll be involved. But remarkable, fast pace, pulling plans together that had not been anticipated 3 months ago. So
yeah, thank you for that.
Well
Mr.
done.
Sykes, thank you. We it will be a different kind of graduation, and we've had, you know, modify, just like we've had to modify instruction, we've had to modify that traditional ceremony. It will be very, very nice for our students. It will be something that they will be able to be proud of, and a moment, like Stephanie mentioned, that they'll remember for their lifetime. And so appreciate you all for your support. Okay, along with graduation, I want to talk about some other things. Next week, when we meet, school will essentially be over, our school year. You can imagine that. In April, I reported that we had been in contact with approximately 13,500 of the 14,761 students who were enrolled just before spring break when we closed schools. Our current data shows that we've been able to close that gap to a great extent. Campuses are reporting that there are 333 students that they've still not been able to contact. And that's about 2% of our student population. I would say that the majority of those for whom we've had no contact with are high school students. Last month, I also reported that 62% of our students were engaged in online instruction. And I expressed some concern about that 62% because we want our students to stay on track. And certainly that's been a challenge during this time. Our teachers have worked hard to continue to keep students engaged. And like I said, but it's still been a challenge for us. It's also been a challenge to keep track of the level of engagement across the district. And that's because our students are logging into multiple software programs, and we don't have a system to pull all of that data together into one single point. So if you're in a special program, you might be logging into a different kind of reading program than other students. So we can pull data by each individual program, but we don't have a what I call a dashboard to pull it all together. So that's something that you might see in that district improvement plan for next year, is that we pull together some kind of a dashboard where we can see a whole picture of our students. So one of the things that we did recently, just to give us a different view of how our students are engaged, was to look in our gradebook system. And we wanted to see how many students had grades by their teachers since schools closed. And the data in that system shows that we have at least a grade for 99% of our students in the system for this grading period. That doesn't tell us if they have met all of the requirements for a course. It's just a peek at what might be in that system. And to narrow that data down is a pretty complicated process. So we'll be continuing study our student engagement But I want to be clear that it's a given that instruction has suffered for our students as a result of our schools being closed. And despite our best efforts, we haven't been able to reach every student, and not all of our students have been engaged. And so you can imagine, and maybe some of you are experiencing it with your own students in your home, that this is a challenge. It's been a challenge for our families. It's been a challenge for our students, and moving everything, changing the way we do all of our core business as a school district. And so that makes our decision about summer school hard. And also it is more complicated by the recent guidance that we got from TEA. And the guidance from TEA about in-person summer school. So we moved from a complex decision about graduation to the next complex decision about summer school. And TEA says that in-person summer school must be optional. No more than 11 students can be in a room, that we have to have students 6 feet apart for social distancing, and that if we're in other spaces of the building with those 11 students, that we have to have 30 feet apart so we don't come into contact with students from other classrooms. We can't use the cafeteria. Students have to have lunch at their desk. We have to screen all of our staff for the signs and symptoms of COVID, and we have to screen students. And I think I even read in there, we have to ask about the situation regarding the family and what's going on at home, to discover if there are any issues with COVID. And then after we do all of that, then we would have to close down classrooms for 2 weeks should we get a positive case. So summer school becomes tricky. And I don't think we're prepared to tackle all of those requirements at this time. We haven't even brought all of our staff back yet to be able to do that. And I don't feel confident, and I don't either feel confident about virtual summer school. I don't think that's a great model either, given that we have some fatigue already going with the virtual work that we've been doing. So we've been talking about how to handle summer. And at this time, we think the instructional approach is that's in the best interest of our students, is face-to-face, and we want to do that in the fall. We want to kind of double down and increase our targeted interventions when we come back in the fall, and we want to save some of our financial resources to be able to do that. So we budget a significant amount of money for summer school, and we want to reserve that and really work hard with our students when we get them back. However, we still want to engage our students this summer, and we do have a plan to offer a variety of activities. At the elementary, we're thinking about some reading challenges, a summer adventure program where students are reading 20 minutes a day and working on their math facts every day. Middle school students would read a little bit longer, 30 minutes, and they would engage in some fact fluency and math practice. And we would still use some of those digital resources for that, accelerated reader, Imagine Learning, and then books and flashcards to do that. Each student would keep a log with the number of minutes, the book titles, the math activities that they completed. And then we would give out prizes for students. And we have some donors who are willing to donate bikes and iPads and laptops. So the idea is to keep students reading and engaged, and then reward them for that. We also will continue to share resources online through our website. For our high school students and our overage middle school students, we'd work through Adminum and use our online credit recovery program, so that would be virtual. And then high school would also use the virtual credit recovery through Adminum. Bilingual department would provide online resources to students in pre-K and K. We're required to do that each year, and they have plans to provide 6 books and family-friendly lessons for those books to families. And then if we have to adjust, we don't have all the guidance we need from TEA yet for bilingual ESL, and we may have to adjust that plan. For special education, we have about 20 students whose ARD requires an extended school year, and we'll hire a teacher or teachers to work with those students virtually. And Advanced Academics is offering a variety of virtual experiences for advanced placement, PSAT, history fair performance, and more. So that's where we are at this point with summer. And of course, I don't know what the fall looks like yet either. So that will be, summer school's the next decision point, and then the fall will be the one after that. So we have some more challenges ahead of us.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
Susan, is it fair to say that with the uncertainty going forward, yes, with summer school and beyond in the fall, with the uncertainty regarding student enrollment, what about teachers in terms of obvious concerns as they've gone through this process in the spring and sitting at home? And I know, from a professional standpoint, they're going to want to get back to the classroom, but there may be a lot of anxiety associated with that as we approach not only through summer school, but also approach the fall. So I'm just saying, I don't know how you bring all those elements together other than just keep monitoring. And just as you need to assess the student level, it seems like the faculty and staff as well going into the fall.
Great point. We have, teachers and staff who are at risk themselves or who live with at-risk family members who may have concerns. And so those are all things we have yet to work through. One of the things we did with Providence was to talk about how to bring facilities and maintenance staff back and train staff there. We're now working on the administration building, hoping to bring our staff there back on June the 1st. And then we hope to bring campus office staff back on June the 15th. So we are biting it off a piece at a time, and it's a big elephant. And we're listening to all of our professional organizations, and I'm on several conference calls a week, listening to the commissioner and other school districts. We have materials that are being pushed out to us, and it is all over the board. And so we will have to come up with a plan. And I think, similar to graduation, it will be our plan with some guidance from TEA. And it's
Thank you.
Staff certainly. Staff is certainly a consideration in that. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're also working through the budget planning process. I've mentioned that already tonight. We do want to bring some presentations to you on June the 11th. One will be some first look at some budget projections. And then we'll also have TASB with us on June the 11th, and they will give presentations to the board on the staffing study that they just completed, as well as the salary study that they are almost finished with. So you can look forward to those. Those will all go together into that budget forecast for 2020, 2021. And then finally, all probably saw that the board's Summer Leadership Institute is now virtual, and it will be held June the 24th through the 26th. And I believe that typical Wednesday evening meeting that we have will still be on Wednesday evening. It will just be virtual. But we'll provide you with more information on that as we get that. We had only planned for one board meeting in June due to SLI, but we're going to need two. So I'd like to have that second one on the 25th if possible. And would just need to know if you all are available for that so we can keep our decisions about budget and salaries moving forward and get those completed so we can tell our staff as soon as possible. All I have this evening.
Okay, well, everybody look at their calendars between now and next week and let Dr. Kincannon know about the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have conflicts, make sure we have most of us available for that. And is there anything else for the good of the order before we close it out? Just a little after 8, pretty good. Covered a lot. Okay, announcements. Josh?
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, I'll take those tonight and have just one announcement, which is that starting next week, we will be partnering with the state to make sure that all of our families know that they are eligible for the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer Program. This is a program that will work very much like the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's a one-time benefit of $285 per child that our families can use to purchase groceries. And because we're a district where every student receives free meals due to the community eligibility provision, it means that every family in our district, every child in our district is eligible for this one-time benefit of $285. So we'll be working with the state to make sure that our families know how they can access that benefit. For families that are already part of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, they'll receive that benefit automatically. For the rest of our families, there is an application process that opens on June 1 and will be open through the month of June until June 30th. And so we'll be sharing links to that application and information about what our families need to do to make sure that they can take advantage of this benefit through the state.
Very important announcement. Okay, is there anything else before we adjourn? No, and so next week we'll be virtual again and evaluate whether or not we want to get together in June.
And I think we can, if you all want to. I think we would just need to set up the room differently so that there's a space between us. So you all can think about that too. And whether or not you want to have that kind of format or you want to continue a little while longer virtually.
Okay.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
I was thinking that room we have the closed conference for the, when we're doing the
oh,
board.
yes, right, exactly. When we have hearings, for example.
Right, yeah, the board hearing. I think that room will accommodate us and where we can keep at least 6 foot difference between each other for the 8 of us.
That's a good idea.
And I mean, the conference room is too small, but then that would take, I think that would suffice.
Which room is that? You're not talking about you're not talking about the regular closed session room.
The overflow room.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
To our left.
Mm-hmm.
It's the third door on the left.
Yes, I think that would work. If we'll have to set up the video cameras there, but that could work.
Right.
You guys want to shoot for that for June 11th?
Well, let's everybody think about it. Share their thoughts with you before next week. And then maybe y'all can come up with some plans depending on the feedback you get and just other logistics that we probably hadn't thought about. And
okay.
We can talk about it again.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Good to see everybody.
It is. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank
you. Good night.
Good night.
Richard.
Good night, all.